We're going to speak to Rebbetzin Esther Khutoretsky, who moved there in January with her husband, Rabbi Mendel, and her two boys. Esther grew up in Iowa, and Esther now helps and cares for whatever's needed in the community and creates a family for the community in the Sunshine Coast. Esther, welcome. Please, can you tell us about the differences between life growing up in Iowa and what life is now like on the Sunshine Coast?
Hi. Sunshine Coast is extremely different than the small town that I grew up in. I grew up in Northeast Iowa. I did not have a typical childhood. And just to give you an idea of what kind of childhood I had, the small town that I grew up in, it literally there's no traffic lights. My backyard overlooked cornfield for miles, and it's quite a very different place than growing up in a city. It's also very cold in the wintertime. It gets very cold, like minus 28 Celsius. And I'm pretty glad that I'm living in the Sunshine Coast now. I honestly never thought I would move to Australia. Moving on Rara here to the Sunshine Coast is and was both a very exciting and incredible journey, and of course still going through that. We're based in the Sunshine Coast, and we're here to service the Jewish community in the Sunshine Coast area and in the surrounding area. There's lots of Jews that live here. It's quite a big mix of elderly people living here, young people, lots of Israelis, lots of kids, and there's lots of opportunity to do things with the people living here. So we often have lots of guests for Shabbat meals. We're about to start a Hebrew school in the next few weeks, and we already got 15 kids interested and signed up, and there are plenty more that are interested, and we'll get them. And we're here to help out with whatever the community needs, any holiday, Purim, Pesach, whatever is needed here. If I pinpoint what I do between running around with my kids, is that I think something that's really important here is that a lot of Jewish people that live here don't live close to family, and I think that I try really hard. We try here to be that family for people. Growing up in a small town, even like living very far away from all my family, all my grandparents and cousins and uncles all lived far away in Israel, and growing up in a small community, the small community was our family. Anytime something was going on, if someone had a bar mitzvah, if someone just gave birth, people always pitched in. You always felt like you had a family. And even though they weren't related to you by blood, but the love and warmth that they gave you literally made you feel like family. And that's what I'm trying to give over to people here. So I invite people over for dinner and meet up with friends and Jewish people and just in the park, just random small little acts to give that people a sense of family. And then often I just call people on the phone to see how people are doing and make sure people are okay, and just tell them that I thought about them. There's this woman that I speak to quite often, and even though she's way older than me, she always appreciates when I call her and wish her a good Shabbos, and we have a little chat. And personally, I always enjoy our conversations. She always reminds me of my mom, who lives far away in Iowa, and it's something small that I do. And of course, we're living here, we're a face of the Jewish people. We travel ever so often. A few weeks ago, we traveled to Bundaberg, about 2-3 hours away from here, and we met a couple Jews there, and we had a meal together, and we spoke about Jewish topics, and it was very inspiring for me, but I'm sure it was like way more inspiring for the people that are living there. They live in really far away from any vibrant Jewish community, and for them to see me and my husband and my two boys, to see a religious live happening is something very inspiring and something very special for them to see. And a week before that, we traveled to a place called Toowoomba, and there's a family that we know there that we went to go visit them because they lost a loved one, and it was quite hard to go visit them, and I'm sure it was harder for them. It was something that was really painful for me to see was someone. I know that a lot of people are going through this, especially because of the restrictions, that people are not able to travel and join family members. I saw that it's something that's really hard, is not being able to be with family, especially is such a important moment in someone's life. And so we went to travel. We traveled there, and we tried a little bit to fill up that void and share a little bit of warmth and comfort to somebody who was in need. When I think about my move here to Australia, I honestly feel extremely humbled and privileged to be living here and being able to be here to help people and be there for people. I grew up in a very small town, and something interesting that I always used to do as a kid, anytime we traveled either to the mall or if we were flying in an airport, and we went to a zoo, it doesn't make a difference where we were. Like, as a kid, it was this natural thing that we're always looking around to see if there's other Jews there, even though like no one else is in the zoo. It's just you and your families, no other Jews for miles. We always used to look around, and sometimes, it happened to be that a friend from my town was also near, like, oh my, it's amazing that we see another Jew in the zoo. It's so cool. And it's interesting because I feel like now as an adult, that's what I'm doing here. Just, of course, not in that childish mind of mine, but here we're looking around and trying to find the Jews that live here and be a family for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther, and thank you for bringing your warmth and love to the local community, especially in these times of isolation, and for always looking out for Jews just like you did when you were a child growing up. Thank you so much.